Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along on this Friday evening to the Football Insomniac. Once again, I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host. He's came back from a small trip. You might see a bit of sunburn about him. He's got some colour this week. He's got some colour. Sean, welcome. How you been?
Good, thank you. Yeah, just nice wee trip down south with the family. As you've so thankfully pointed out that I am a wee bit sunburned. Came back to Midlothian and it's pouring with rain, but it was a lovely day yesterday in Northumberland. But aye, good. Feeling relaxed and re-energised and happy to chat football with you, mate.
As always, mate, that's what we're here for on a Friday. A big warm welcome to everyone who is joining us. We're live on Facebook, on YouTube and on Twitter. If you are watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to A State of Mind, first of all, why? But secondly, we do have a fantastic prize going here on A State of Mind. For everyone that subscribes, they will be entered into a prize draw for the chance to win a fantastic, one-of-a-kind, money can't buy prize. That is the Verve's, I think it's the Urban Hymns album, and it's a certification for selling so many CDs. It's a fantastic prize. You can check it out on Paul John Dyke's Twitter. And definitely, we've just hit 12.6k subscribers. Get subscribing as soon as we're going to do the draw. We'll let you know. But everyone that enters and everyone who has subscribed already is already entered. So do get involved. It is a fantastic prize. Jerry H comes in to say, "Evening, guys." Good evening to you, Jerry, joining us all the way from Miami. I'm sure he gets a fair bit of the sun over there, Sean.
Aye, I mean, I just wouldn't last. I'd be constantly covered up fighting in the shade.
But we are here to talk Euro 2020. It is the big final on Sunday, Italy versus England. I mean, I've enjoyed this tournament thoroughly. It's been one of the best, certainly in my lifetime, but I guess that could all change depending on who wins that trophy on Sunday.
You're not wrong. It's been great. It's been so much positive about this tournament, like seeing fans back. I mean, I didn't expect the quality of football to be very good at this tournament. Like Euro 2016 wasn't great, and people put that down to 24 teams, and the quality maybe not being as high. But this tournament's just been fantastic, and I thought after COVID and the congested seasons that players would just be shattered. And if they are shattered, they're not been showing it, because the football that's been on display has been absolutely fantastic. But it could all be tainted, like you say, if it doesn't go our way. I'm putting it as our way on Sunday.
That way being the Italian way, obviously. But we will be discussing the final very shortly. We will also be going through some of the awards that have been running on my Twitter page over the last 12 hours or so. We'll be going through who is the breakout of this tournament, who is the player of the tournament, and also your favourite goal. Thanks to everyone who voted. And we'll bring you the results. The first one being the breakthrough of the tournament after we look back at what was a fantastic group stage of football. Sean, you covered it here on A State of Mind for the State of the Euros, and the amount of games, I mean, as you said, it was top quality football from start to finish, starting with Italy 3, Turkey 0 on the opening day. We were here on A State of Mind doing a preview just before it, and good thing we finished when we did, because that was a fantastic game of football.
It was really, really good, and it was surprising in a lot of ways. I mean, we know that lots of people had tipped Italy as dark horses, and how much can you tip Italy as a dark horse considering their sort of football and prestige? But, I mean, they came out in that game and put on a show, especially in that second half, and they showed that, I think people thought then, this is a team that could go to the final, and of course that is the case. And Turkey were massively disappointing, because a lot of people had them as dark horses to maybe not win the tournament but have a run at it. What an idiot, Colin. But you must be feeling a bit worried after that performance.
Yes, definitely.
But I mean, that first performance, you thought maybe it's just because Italy were so good. It obviously didn't transpire to be that way, but fans in Rome, Nessun Dorma, which has got the juices flowing and so excited for the tournament.
What a start.
The wee remote car, I mean, it was just exactly what you want. And I remember from that first game, it obviously didn't go to plan in the end, but seeing all the flags of the tournament around the stadium and seeing the Scottish flag there was a massive moment for me. I was just like, I can't believe it's actually there. That's when it really sunk in that we were at the Euros, we were here at this tournament, and it was so exciting. It didn't last long, but it was a great laugh.
We'll cover that shortly. I'm just bringing in some of the comments. Sorry, I couldn't even pronounce your first name. I'm terrible at that. But he's come in to say Damsgaard for the breakout star. We'll find out very shortly who that is. Gaz Smith coming in on Facebook to say, I hope that Italy win with a dodgy decision on Sunday. I would take them moaning for the next 55 years if they lose to a bad decision. We will cover that and we'll discuss whether it was a bad decision to give the penalty in the semi-final later on. But back to the group stages, as you said, a fantastic opening day, 3-0 for Italy against Turkey. One of the teams a lot of people thought, including myself, would be a dark horse. But then the Saturday, now, it's very difficult to kind of mention this in a lot of detail because of the events that happened on the Saturday. But for me, it was one of the hardest days I've had watching football for a long, long time. I was actually in the fan zone at Glasgow Green, the infamous fan zone that was set up. I have to say that the fan zone, I think, was a complete disaster from start to finish. Not because of the proximity of everybody, but the fact that it was £6 for a flat pint. And if you look at the pictures from the days that Scotland weren't playing, there was about 3 men in their dug that were actually at it. So I think that's something they'd need to look at for future tournaments. But sitting in that fan zone and the Denmark-Finland game, when Christian Eriksen collapses, for me, that was one of the hardest moments I've had watching football, Sean. I mean, the fact that whoever it was, whether it be the BBC, whether it be UEFA, decided to continue to sort of show what was happening on the park as he was receiving CPR. I mean, it does, when you look back on it now, that's one of the biggest regrets of this tournament, was how those 5 to 10 minutes were handled.
Yeah, and I think we knew that at the time, that we were living through it and sort of going, like, why is this happening? Why is this not cut to a studio or just completely sort of cut to black? We didn't need to have anything on our TV screens at that moment. And I think the fact that those Danish players had to make a sort of wall around Christian Eriksen and had to stand there and watch their friend, their teammate, receive CPR and treatment like that, just to block out these cameras, was sickening, really. And it made you so angry at the time, while you're also so stressed and worried, because, I mean, it doesn't matter who it is, whatever happened on a football pitch, to see any player do that would be disgusting. But when it's a star like Christian Eriksen, it sort of hits home a bit more, I think, because you see these people as you don't always see them as humans. You see them as these people on the telly, and they're fantastic athletes, and they're so successful and rich and all that sort of stuff. And it just reminds everyone, no matter who you are, that life can change in an instant. And it was really sort of hurtful to watch. I mean, I thought he passed away live on TV. I really did think that. And I'm so glad that we got the news when we did, that he was okay. It came through fairly quickly, because I don't know if I would be able to sleep that night if we still didn't know that he was in a good condition and all that sort of stuff, because it was just so scary.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I mean, for us, we decided to leave the fan zone after that. I know there was another game that night. I think Belgium were playing.
Yeah, Russia.
Belgium were playing Russia, and at that point, we weren't sure if the game was going to go ahead, and we decided to leave. And I think it kind of dampened the mood for a lot of people. And the fact that basically the Denmark game went on against Finland later on that night, that is something that has to be looked at, that can never ever happen again. And it's only testament to those Danish players that they got so far in this tournament after what happened. So all the best, obviously, to Christian Eriksen. It does look as if he's recovering very well. A massive shout out to Simon Kjær and to Kasper Schmeichel for their actions on the field that day, and the whole football community that came behind them. It was just a lovely touch. Looking ahead to maybe about 3 or 4 days later on, everyone was getting back into fever pitch. Sean, you made the long trip down to London along with another 20,000 Scotland fans. Tell us about that experience of being down there.
I mean, it was amazing. And it's funny seeing the scenes in London over these last few England games, because I didn't see many England fans that day at all. And London, it was a complete Scotland takeover. And the atmosphere was just amazing. And to see folk excited about the national team, I mean, people always travel down for those games at Wembley, but to see so many numbers, and obviously not that many people had a ticket, so because of restrictions, so just so many people who wanted to be part of that atmosphere and get behind the national team was amazing to see. And like I said, it was blue and white everywhere, and it was a beautiful sight.
I think it's one of the few times that seeing blue and white everywhere wasn't causing trouble for a start. But I mean, when you look at it, although you didn't get to the game, you were part of that atmosphere. You were actually part of this tournament, something that both the two of us have never really been involved in throughout our whole lifetime. This is the first time Scotland had qualified for 23 years. I mean, Baccarat were back in the Scottish charts towards the number 1 position, all because of a dodgy stag do. And I mean, if you'd said to me that 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have been saying, what are you taking? But it was fever pitch across the country. Everywhere I was going that day when Scotland played England, and we were live here on A State of Mind, there was Scotland tops, there was Scotland flags, everyone was there, and the national spirit was never higher, and the team put on a fantastic performance that evening.
They really did, and that's what was so encouraging about it, is that trip to London would have been special to me no matter what, and to see the atmosphere before, but the fact they put in that performance, and you were coming away with it thinking we could have won that. It was great to see, and it would have been deflating if they'd lost that game. It would have taken a little bit away from it, and obviously would have loved to have won it. But the way that, I think all of us as Scotland fans would have taken going into that last game still in with a chance, and we know now, looking back on it, it didn't go our way. But the fact that they got that point, that meant we pretty much knew that a win against Croatia would send us through, and we were still fighting, and we were still alive in that last group game, was really exciting. And I mean, Scotland at a major tournament, it's not going to happen a lot. It hasn't happened. Well, hopefully it can now, but like we said, it's our first time. And to be there and be a part of it just makes you want to happen again and again and again, because it's experiences that will live with you for a long time. And
the fact that Scotland might be the only team that the potential winners didn't get the chance to beat, that says a lot for that Scottish national team.
I will happily give up that accolade. I'm early win the tournament. I'm fine. I don't need that. I don't need it, honestly.
A big warm welcome to everyone who is joining us today. I'm going to go through some of the comments. The Dude Abide comes in to say, Italy's lack the pace at the back to deal with England's forward line. However, Italy are superior in the middle of the park, and that's where the game will be won and lost. I'm very much looking forward to this game on Sunday. I think it could be another cracker. He also comes back in to say that Russia were the worst team at the tournament, beating Turkey slightly. The two of them weren't very great. Danny Boy 68 comes in to say, folks, bad news for you. This England team's going nowhere. You've seen what's coming through. This will be a 2-year cycle. Well, it will be interesting to see how that goes, as Sean Curran comes in to say hello from Embra. And Fraser will be backing us once again. Forza Italia. I mean, I think Italy gained a couple of million fans overnight as soon as England get through with that penalty, but we'll talk about that shortly. Just before we go to our first award of the evening, which is the breakthrough of the tournament, Sean, looking back over the whole group stage, what was your highlight and what was your game of the round?
I think the first game that was really sort of high quality mental tournament football was the Netherlands versus Ukraine, because that was just like, it was players who you weren't really expecting to like. Dumfries had a great game in that one. Yarmouk was great up front for Ukraine.
Scored a fantastic goal.
Yeah. And the fact that Holland were sort of looking quite comfortable, and then you had that great comeback from Ukraine to only be pipped at the death, was just really exciting. And it's what you want from tournament football, is players who you're not massively familiar with. It's countries who you don't watch sort of every international break, just going on and putting on a show. And you had that comeback, you had the late goal, you had all that sort of stuff. And that's when Euro 2020 really got sort of kicked into gear for me. It's like, this is going to be a good time.
Yeah, I've got to say that game was a fantastic end-to-end game. I mean, Ukraine looked out of it with 20 minutes to go, and then they got the 2 goals and the kind of the sickener at the end. But for me, I think the game of the round was Portugal versus Germany, which finished 4-2 to Germany. It was just one of those games that every time the ball went up the park, you were just expecting it to end up in the back of the net. And in the German perspective, it's probably the best they played throughout the whole tournament. I mean, overall, if you're a German fan, you'll be disappointed with how this tournament went. They kind of scraped through in the end. That 2-each draw with Hungary kind of summed up how the tournament went.
4-2 makes it sound like a fairly close game, but Portugal were pretty rubbish.
Yeah.
It was a dominant Germany display, really, and of course, Gosens had that great game on the flank and just sort of his real breakout performance. I know we're about to get onto that, but he sort of really stood out in that game, and it's a name that probably not a lot of people were really familiar with heading into this tournament. And he just looked fantastic. And Nelson Semedo was running scared. I think he got subbed off in the end because he was just getting absolutely battered. So that was another fantastic game. And of course, that had the that game was in Budapest as well, wasn't it? So you have the advantage of a full stadium, which just made such a difference. And was, for me, the highlight of this whole tournament is the fact that fans were there in every single game to see it.
Danny Boy 68 coming back in to say the Hungarians knew how to go out in a blaze of glory. They were fantastic. We had Kevin McCluskey on telling us that they were the team to look out for because they'd been on a fantastic run before the tournament. They were a team that didn't know when they were beat, and we could see that throughout the 3 group games that they were involved in, and they were very unlucky not to make it into the round of 16. So yeah, definitely one of those teams that caught me by surprise when going into the tournament.
No, definitely. And they sort of rode that wave of the atmosphere, didn't they? And it's sort of some of the fighting spirit of that team up, the fact that they conceded that equaliser against Germany and then literally went straight at the park and scored again with that sort of like diving header. There was just complete bravery to go flying into Neuer. And it just summed up that team. I was really gutted that they didn't end up sneaking into the knockout stages, but it's a promising sign for Hungarian football, and hopefully they can sort of I'm sure that a lot of people paid more attention because of the full stadiums and because of the performances the team put on, and hopefully that's a sort of the start of an upward trajectory for them.
So let's start with this evening's first award, and it is the breakout of the tournament. You know what happens at these tournaments, there's always 1 or 2 players that catch the eye and then go on to make a big transfer, normally to England, for ridiculous amounts of money. I'm thinking if you go back to 2014 World Cup, you've got James Rodriguez, even as far back as maybe Eric Jemba back in 2002. There's always one that stands out. Now, the 4 that we put forward for this award were Patrick Schick of the Czech Republic, Jeremy Doku of the Netherlands, Alexander Zinchenko of the Ukraine, and Locatelli of Italy. Now, Sean, we'll reveal the result in a minute, but out of the 4, who would you have given the award to?
Do I have to go for one of the 4?
Oh, okay then. Who would you have given it to then?
I think breakouts to be someone who you probably didn't know too much before and is now sort of could be courted by top clubs. And I think that's Mæhle of Denmark. I just think he's had such a good tournament at left back and sort of that weird role of being a right-footed left back. And just signed for Atalanta in January. And I know Ian Wright said that he'd had a good couple of years at Atalanta, but he did just sign a few months ago.
I mean, let's not get into the commentary team because we could do a full hour on this. I mean, I've seen the team that have been lined up to do the commentary for the final, and I think I will be putting it on the radio. Honestly, it's been dreadful.
It hasn't been good at all. I mean, if you need to know about the quality of that player, just need to think about that assist in the Czech Republic game, the quarter-final in Baku. Outside of his foot, curled right into the path of Dolberg, who just needs to tap home. And he's just been so good on that left-hand side for Denmark. And he's kind of been, I mean, with no Eriksen, you had to find these other catalysts. And of course, Kjær's had a great tournament at the back. But him, in sort of a defensive sense and an attacking sense, has been fantastic. So he's my breakout star. For going for one of those 3, I think people are going to be talking about Jeremy Doku a lot coming to this tournament, especially that performance against Italy. He looked like Belgium's biggest threat in that team of stars. This 18, 19-year-old kid who plays his football in Belgium that we maybe don't sort of regard as a top footballing league. He's the one I think that Premier League clubs are going to be thinking, let's get in for him now before he becomes a massive player, or we miss out on him and he's sort of making us pay for that, because I think that at that age and the sort of talent he showed, I think big clubs will be sniffing around for him.
For me, I would have probably went for Locatelli. I think he did fantastic. He basically claimed that jersey of Borelli's and made it his own for a number of games. He was one of the kind of key important players in that Italian midfield that drove them forward, but also offered that stability at the back. And I think you've already seen, I think Arsenal are looking to put in a £35 million bid for him. So he does potentially have that ability to be that one player that does make the move. But we put it out to the Insomniac public, and the results came in that your breakout player of Euro 2020 was the Czech Republic's Patrick Schick with 44% of the vote. Again, when you look at it, Sean, a guy that not a lot of people would have had on in the top goal scorer, and yet in there with the 5 goals in the end, he ended up getting 4 goals, 5 goals. 5 goals, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's the same as Ronaldo. And I think that he's just a proper centre forward. I mean, we saw it much to our detriment in that first game. I mean, obviously everyone's going to talk about the second goal, but I love that header. I mean, I didn't love it at the time. I was cursing it, but the way he got up and the way he was so dominant against a player like Grant Hanley, who is physical himself, and he just got up above and the headers placed perfectly. It just made a proper nuisance of himself in every single game he played. And that's what you want from your centre forward. You're maybe not going to score in every game, and he almost did, but just for the defenders to know that you've been there, they've been in a game. And Schick definitely did that, and it was interesting. Looking back on it, we know Timo Werner didn't have a great season at Chelsea, and it was same goal scoring records. It was his partnership with Patrick Schick that got him to that great level. And maybe we're underrating Schick in that partnership. Of course, Werner's gone and he scored all the goals, but we've seen Schick really come into his own now. He's 25 years old. That's a great age to be at as a striker. And I think that it's hard to know. He went to Roma on loan, and then he's ended up at Leverkusen now. Will a team bigger than Leverkusen come in and buy him? We know the market's funny just now. Not many people have teams have money, so he might have to have another great season at Leverkusen to sort of really establish a bigger move. But teams will definitely be keeping a tab on him. I'd like to see him do well, despite the fact that I definitely wasn't saying that on that Monday afternoon.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it just summed up the state of Scottish football. That our first game in a major tournament in 23 years was 2:00 on a Monday afternoon. And at some point, some of the schools across Scotland weren't even going to roll out the TV to show it. That kind of summed up Scotland. But no, congratulations to Patrick Schick, breakout start of the tournament. I do think I've read that West Ham are interested in picking him up, and I think that would be a great move for him. Palace with their new manager, Patrick Vieira, so that'll be an interesting one as well. But yeah, congratulations to Patrick Schick. So moving on now to the knockout stages, and we'll start with around the 16. Some interesting results here. France losing on penalties to Switzerland, another fantastic comeback. This was the tournament of comebacks. The amount of games where a team looked as if they were comfortable with maybe 20, 30 minutes to go, and then all of a sudden there was just a collapse. We see it again with Croatia against Spain. Italy really fighting hard against Austria, although it wasn't a comeback as such. It was taking a lot longer than it had to be. It was just a fantastic kind of end-to-end tournament.
I know, and what a game. And I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the game that happened before it, but you kind of went into this one thinking this would be a case of Switzerland sitting in, France trying to break them down, maybe a 1-0, 2-0 win for the world champions, and they'd head on and you'd say, well done Switzerland, good fight. But they took the game to France. They wanted to keep the ball, they wanted to play it about, and France with their 3 at the back that kind of came out of nowhere, and Rabiot playing left wing back, which I don't think he's ever played in his life before then. It was all very confusing. You could see that from the players themselves, that they were confused, and Deschamps' team selection and the formation that he implemented. And it meant that Switzerland could get right in about them. And that great goal from Seferovic to start off with, he absolutely bullied Longley, kind of just set the tone that Switzerland weren't here to lie down to, like I said, the world champions. And for the entire game, that's how it went. And France had that spell, and you thought this has gone beyond Switzerland now, but that grit to come back, and France just dropped away. And you don't expect that. You can't have that sort of complacency, even if you are the most recent World Cup winners. You've got to respect every team at this level. I don't know if France did that. I thought they got too overconfident with that great spell they were playing, and Switzerland made them pay. And it ended with a penalty shootout, which is the ultimate drama. And like we were saying on the State of the Euros, for some reason you just knew that Kylian Mbappe was going to miss that penalty. From the moment when you saw it was him taking the 5th one, it hasn't been his tournament. He's still a fantastic player. He's not overrated. He's not overhyped. He's a great player who had a poor tournament. And you just had that feeling that this was not going to work out, and it didn't. And you've got to give credit to Sommer as well, who was a fantastic keeper throughout for Switzerland.
Yeah, and we'll see if any of these players make our team of the tournament when we get to it. But looking at that game, as you said, when Mbappe stepped up, you just had a feeling he didn't look comfortable, and it was another fantastic save, as you said, from Sommer. But when you look back at the Portuguese side, who won Euro 2016, Ronaldo was that driving force. He was the one that grabbed the team literally by the neck and got them through these difficult games. Now, when you look at that French team, there was a number of players that could have done that. You're looking at a Paul Pogba, you're looking at a Griezmann, you're looking at a Benzema, you're looking at an Mbappe, and none of them really stood up to it. I thought they were all pretty poor in that, and the leadership was something I think that was lacking from that French side, and it's one of the reasons that they crashed out so early.
Yeah, I'd say maybe more leadership in a defensive sense, because I think that like Benzema did have a good tournament. I would say I'd say Pogba had a good tournament as well. I agree that Griezmann and Mbappe have been disappointing, but I mean, there's so much sort of talent in that French sort of centre back area that you're saying to Laporte, you can go and play for Spain.
Yeah.
But none of them are leaders. I mean, even Rafael
No.
Varane, who's had all that experience playing alongside Sergio Ramos, I don't know if that's meant that he's not had to do that, so he doesn't think he has to do it for France. But none of them sort of just seem to reassess and go, we're 3-1 up. Let's keep this tight. Let's sort of keep the ball. It was nothing. I mean, N'Golo Conte is a fantastic player, but he's not the type. He's not going to shout at players and say keep it tight or that. He's going to set an example. And even for him, he seemed to go a bit quiet in that sort of last 20-25 minutes, and it ultimately cost France.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at someone like Kimpembe, who's looked to be the future within that French defence, and the best thing that happened to him was the 2018 World Cup, because he got that fantastic line in the Veggie Dream song. But the Euro 2020 will be something that he looks to forget very, very quickly, because he was very poor.
Yep.
Before the knockout round was on, we were live here on the Insomniac, and we were predicting what would be the tie of the round, and we both agreed it would be Croatia versus Spain, and lo and behold, I'd definitely say that was the case. A 5-3 victory for Spain in extra time, and again another game where Croatia looked sort of out of it with about 10-15 minutes to go, and they just come back. And I tell you what, if there was another couple of minutes, I'd have fancied Croatia to go on and win in normal time. Yeah,
Spain, I mean, this game was not of the highest quality in the sense that neither team could really defend. I mean, it wasn't one of those ones where great attacks sort of kept going. It was the fact that neither team had that solidity to really see out the game or sort of take hold of the game. It was just pretty chaotic throughout. And when Croatia got that goal to make it 3-2, you really did feel like they were going to get an equaliser in this game, and that great in-swinging cross. And we've seen it all tournament, the sort of defensive frailty of Spain. And they just didn't deal with that aerial ball when it. No. And this one was in Copenhagen, and that's had some of the best atmospheres of the tournament. I mean, I saw a comment coming in earlier saying that Denmark-Russia should have been the game of the tournament just for the atmosphere alone, and I think there's something in that. The Parken Arena was a fantastic venue at these Euros, and I think it just seemed like a fitting place to have this. And you had the ultimate narrative of essentially the winning goal. Of course, it was the fourth out of five, but the one that really sort of swung the game in Spain's favour ultimately was from Alvaro Morata, who'd been so criticised that everyone's saying he should be dropped, and he scores that fantastic volley.
Great goal.
Spain ahead in this game. And I think when we look back on Euro 2020, that this evening that we just talked about, those two games back to back, but particularly this game, will be one of the first things that pops into your head, because it was just mental.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, one night and you get, 14 goals? Outstanding.
14 2 games.
Outstanding. Both games go into extra time as well, so lots of action there. If you are watching us, we are live here on Facebook and on YouTube and Twitter. Moravchik25 has came in to say, evening guys, and he also agrees with you, Sean, saying that the parking is always rocking. Definitely. I mean, you've seen it. If anyone's a Celtic fan that's watching, when they played Copenhagen in the Europa League a couple of years ago, you saw before the game and at half-time, the fans get really into it, and the Danish fans really got behind their team throughout the tournament, and it was one of the reasons why I think they got so far in the end. And you just wonder what would have happened if that game wasn't at Wembley the other night.
The fans are always like right on top of them there at the parking as well. It makes you think that if we were a football daft country, how nice would it be to have a stadium that had a great atmosphere and you're all really close to the pitch and it was really modern and sort of gave a great image of Scottish football. How great would that be, Colin?
Right, we're getting into this then. Hampden is the biggest disappointment of Euro 2020. I mean, absolutely the biggest disappointment. That stadium is pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. The fact that if you're behind the goal, you are miles away from the pitch. How it manages to generate the atmosphere that it does is absolutely beyond me, because the stadium is not set out that way. And I know that everyone's screaming out for the £9 million that the SFA are getting from qualifying for this tournament to be invested in grassroots football, but something has to be done about Hampden, because looking at it, you see all these impressive stadiums across Europe, and then it cuts to Hampden and you're going, that's embarrassing.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, Baku was rubbish as well, but I think that's more sort of reflection on the popularity of football in Azerbaijan. I don't think it's as big, but in a football daft country like Scotland, and like you said, the atmosphere can still be very, very good in Hampden.
Yeah.
Imagine if the stadium facilitated that. Like, imagine we're at a stadium where it was meant to be an intimidating atmosphere. Imagine feeling like those mental Scotland fans are right on top of you. But even when it is loud, you know that there's still a full running track in the way.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, I'm sure you've made more trips to Hampden in a club sense than I have. But even going for Scotland games and the couple of times I've been to watch Kilmarnock, it's just not the same. I mean, you need your fans. Scotland need their fans to be the sort of 12th man in these situations. And we're only hampering ourselves by having a stadium that doesn't look up to par and doesn't do the job that it should.
It's not fit for purpose for me. And the comments coming in are agreeing. Hypo543 coming in to say the view from above Hampden in one of the matches was embarrassing. And the Did a Bite comes in to say Hampden's lacked creativity upon its inception. It was never good. But the thing is, it was good at one point. It was until the redevelopment came in to Hampden. You look back and you watch the finals, like Celtic Aberdeen from years ago, 140,000 in at Hampden, and it looked incredible. But now it just looks like an empty bowl. Fraser Ogilvie comes in to say it just needs to be levelled and moved away from where it is. It's just, for me, it's a stadium that's, although it's only recently been developed, it's well past its sell-by date.
Yeah, I think we need something done soon to that. I wasn't keen for it to move to Murrayfield, even though that'd be great for me being not too far from Edinburgh. But I like the fact that there's that link that Hampden has been the home of Scottish football for a very, very long time, but it needs to reflect the fact that, I mean, Scottish football should be taken seriously. It's the most supported football. Football's the most, if you look around Europe, Scotland fans go to games so much more than other countries around the continent. I just think that needs to be reflected in the fact that a stadium needs to be up to par, do its job, and look like we care about football in this country, because we really, really do.
Yeah, it just looks like a multi-purpose stadium for me.
And it doesn't get used in a multi-purpose. It doesn't get used in a multi-purpose. I mean, for the Commonwealth Games, that's happened now. I just think, something needs to change.
Any other games you want to touch on in the last 16 before we move on to the quarters?
Last 16. You're asking me off the top of my head here. But I think, that those two games were just brilliant. They summed up what makes football so good, the drama of it all. And we spoke about in the State of the Euros that there's an argument to be made that was the best single day of tournament football ever, because it was just mental. Those two games are definitely the standout moments.
Yeah, I've got to agree. So we'll move on to the quarterfinals, starting off with Belgium versus Italy. Italy going into a 2-0 lead before Belgium pull one back just before half-time, and you're thinking, that second half, if it's anywhere near as good as the first half, we'll have a fantastic game of football. And then it just petered out and Italy went through. It was one of those sort of Jekyll and Hyde moments in football where it could be so good and then in the second half it was just so bad.
Yeah, and I'd like to sort of concentrate the positives of that game, because in that first half, I think I tweeted it that I don't remember the last time I watched a game of that quality. Like, it was just so like the football was so good.
It was outstanding. Yeah.
Really, really simply. And I think players have struggled in this period of having no fans. And it's meant the games are slower. You don't run that extra mile. You don't press as hard, all that sort of stuff. But in this game, it was just some of the best players in the world. Two of the best, for me, the two best teams at this tournament. And England might be the exception to that. But up until that point, I think that it was the two best teams at the tournament going head to head and just swinging for each other in that first half. And you didn't know what way this game would go. And Italy, we've said that it's a new Italy and they're sort of abandoning their ways, but you saw that sort of true Italian grit and some of the sort of darker arts of football come out there, which I'm perfectly fine with, to be honest. I mean, it is frustrating when it's against your team, but I think that a wee bit of cheating in football is never too bad, I think. And I think that when it's your own team, you love it. And I think that the Italians do it better than most, the dramatics and all that sort of stuff. So it was just a really, really good, great game of football. And another one that will stand with me for this tournament, because that first half, I don't remember being as engrossed in a game of football in a long, long time.
And one of the goals of the tournament for me was Insignia's goal in that, where he just opens his foot and it curls into the back of the net. And we are going to be speaking about the goal of the tournament after this round. And that is one of the shortlisted four. And for me, I just thought it was outstanding. It's the technique to do that. And I remember just watching it going, wow, that is outstanding.
Yeah, you're spot on. And there's moments of the game, I mean, there's the controversial penalty and the defending for Chiesa's goal isn't good at all. But I think that you've just got to sort of move those sort of wee things to the side and think that game had so much quality in it, and it's summed up by that Insigne goal, who's a player who's had a great tournament, and his pace has really, really troubled a lot of defenders, and the fact that he has got that quality to wrap it round. We saw it in that game, we saw it in the opening game against Turkey, and it'll be definitely something that England's mind on Sunday night.
Interested to get your thoughts on this. The Duda comes in to say Roberto Martinez will go down as a failure at Belgium now. The big talk before this tournament was this is Belgium's golden generation. Guys like De Bruyne, Lukaku, they were the ones that had the nation's hopes on their shoulders. That was seen as their best chance to win a tournament forever, and they only made the quarter-final. Does Martinez go down as a failure?
I mean, that almost suggests that he's done. And I don't know that he is. I think he might be. I think he'll be there in Qatar. And I think that there's a really good article in The Athletic. I think it was by Adam Crafton, and the whole point, he was sort of debunking the myth that this was the golden generation. And in fact, what he meant by that was this team sort of peaked at different times. Like if you look at that defence is not a golden generation defence. They are old. I mean, Alderweireld's the youngest one. He's 32, 33. Thomas Vermaelen is playing football in Japan.
35, isn't he?
Yeah, Vertonghen's 35. He's playing for Benfica now. That defence was very, very good, but they're not at the same level as your De Bruyne and Lukaku, who are undoubtedly at their peaks and two of the best players in the world at the moment, I think. But to say that whole team, that collective team, were at their absolute best, and this was a golden generation, is maybe you've got to sort of look a bit in the sort of nuance of that and look at the different areas of the team. I mean, if it's a golden generation, Jeremy Doku, who was great, but he's just sort of breaking onto the scene. It's not like they had an established team of 11 absolute stars who were all at their prime. And I don't think any team who ever wins a major tournament does, but I just think that that's maybe something that's been sort of inflated a little bit too much. I think there's obviously a very good chance that Italy win this tournament. Is going out to the eventual winners going to be looked back as that much of a disaster? They finished third in the World Cup in 2018 and went out to the eventual winners then in France, and it was just a set piece goal that separated the teams on that day. Yes, they went out to Wales in 2016, and that was not the way that was intended to go at all. But winning major tournaments is hard. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, is to go and win an international tournament. And I think that Belgium might never have a better chance, and this might be the best team we see. But from watching the documentary about Roberto Martinez, he's there as the technical director of Belgium as well. He's trying to set up a long-term sort of procedure where talent is sort of set up from a very, very young age, and this isn't I'll remember that great Belgian team that they had. This is going to continue for years and years and years, and they're going to become a European powerhouse. And I think to say that the number one ranked team in the world have the manager's been a disappointment would maybe be a bit of a stretch. They would love to have silverware to show for it, but like I said, it's really hard, and they've went out to some very good teams. So yes, it could have been more, but I wouldn't write them off just yet.
And you've got to remember, Qatar's only a year away. I mean, that's the way that this is falling. So, I mean, a lot of those players will definitely be part of that squad that goes to Qatar next year. So,
we need defenders, though. There you go.
There you go. That's your two centre halves. Ex-Celtic centre half pairing as well. Who'd have thought it? Going through the kind of ties, obviously Spain winning on penalties. That was a bit of a surprise, considering Spain's recent record of the penalty shootout. England absolutely destroyed the Ukraine. It was really sad to see for the Ukraine, who had put in a fairly decent performance so far. We'd spoke to Adam from UKRFUT podcast, and Denmark coming and knocking out the Czechs. We're going to go to the goal of the tournament before we introduce our guest this week, and let's look at the short list of who was on it. So we had Patrick Schick for his goal from the halfway line against Scotland, not the header, even though, Sean, you've said it's a good striker's header. We had Damsgaard's free kick against England, which was absolutely outstanding, a fantastic goal, the only one that England's conceded at the tournament. Insigne's goal against Belgium, we just spoke about that earlier, a fantastic curl into the corner. And Anders Christensen's goal against Russia, a fantastic strike. It was one of those ones that it was in the net before the goalkeeper even knew about it. The power that you got behind it was outstanding. Now, Sean, you mentioned that your breakout star wasn't one of these four. Is your goal one of these four?
No.
Oh, there it goes. So what would be your goal of the tournament?
I like to be different, and this is maybe a bit cheeky because it's maybe not the exact sort of goal itself that or the shot itself I'm talking about, but ever since it happened, I've not got Karim Benzema's touch for that goal against Switzerland out of my head. It's been living right here, and every time I close my eyes, I see it again. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was just sort of sheer filth. It was beautiful, and I think that turn and there's very few players who you would know instantly that they meant that, and we sort of likened it on the State of the Euros to that. Great touch from Dennis Bergkamp against Newcastle, where he flicks it round the defender, and you knew he meant that because he was just a magician. And the same of Karim Benzema, he's just a genius footballer, and that touch to just set it perfect its path, and then he just strokes it home. It's the goal that has sort of got me off my feet, I think, the most in this tournament, and the one that I'll keep revisiting in my head. So I think that's what you've got to give your goal of the tournament to. In terms of the one on that list, yeah, Schick's is going to go down in Euros history, I think. I mean, when there's in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, when you have confirmations of the best Euros goals, that will still be there. But I love Christensen's because of the atmosphere, because of what it meant for Denmark, and because of the fact it's a centre-half sending an absolute pile driver into the back of the net. I mean,
it was so good. It was one of those ones that even the commentators didn't realise it was in until the celebration started. It went so quick.
Aye. It's just one of those moments. It's just a proper thunderbolt. He just absolutely smashes it into the back of the net from an unexpected source as well. That's what makes it great. I mean, we all love that, as where a centre half just sends an absolute pinger into the back of the net, and that's what Christensen did. And the atmosphere of the parking that night was unbelievable. And that was the goal where you thought Denmark are going to get out of this group despite not winning their first two games. And what a night, and what a goal.
There's a brilliant discussion going on in the chat about Spain, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But Moravchik 25 comes in to say Luka Modric. I'm assuming that's the goal against Scotland. That was another one that was an outstanding finish. It did break the hearts of many across the country, but you've got to say he took it so well.
No, it was a great goal. I mean, two of the goals of the tournament coming against Scotland sounds pretty typical to me. But yeah, you've got to. I mean, Luka Modric is a player who we all knew in that game that if he's on it that night, if he wants to play, then Scotland are going to have to play out their skins to stop him. And it was just picking up those little spaces, and then suddenly the ball's curled into the back of the net like that. It was a great goal from a great player.
Outstanding. Now, again, we put this out to people on Twitter, and the result was that your Insomniac goal of the tournament was Patrick Schick's against Scotland with 55% of the vote. Damsgaard was your runner-up with his fantastic free kick against England. So Schick picking up 2 of the awards at the Insomniac Euros Awards. Will he pick up the third one? He is nominated for the player of the tournament. We will be getting to that once we cover the semi-finals. And to do that, we will be joined by our guest for this evening. He is joining us from ENRG Sport, is where you can also find Sean. Welcome to the show, Cameron Wanstall. How are you doing, Cameron?
Hello, I'm fantastic. How are you?
Yeah, doing great. Now, anyone who has been watching the State of the Euros will have seen Sean and Cameron before, but we're here to discuss the semi-finals and take a look ahead to the final on Sunday. Let's start with Italy against Spain. So many people have said this is one of the greatest games in Euros history, and I've got to agree with them. I thought it was end-to-end from the word go. The quality that was on display was outstanding, and there's a great discussion going on in the chat just now. I'm just going to bring up one of the comments. Danny Boy 68 comes in to say it's not a new Italy. They played against played a Spain side without a striker. Now, this is the point that a lot of people are getting onto, saying that if Spain had an actual striker up there, like the likes of Torres or Villa, then they would have walked this tournament. Sean, we said this before when we did our Euros preview show. Up front was just the position that you looked at Spain and went, there's not enough there.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I mean, Cameron probably know what I'm going to say here, but I think Alvaro Morata's been a bit unfairly criticised this tournament. I mean, yes, he's spurned chances and he's not a world-class clinical striker, but I really think he's one of those players who's, it's funny to say about a striker, but he's got everything he needs to be a world-class striker other than the finishing. Like, he does all the great work. Yep. For his height, he's so fast for a player of that sort of physicality and height. And I think that, I mean, that goal against Italy made him Spain's top goal scorer ever at the Euros. And his goal record, and I've not got it exactly, but it's really not far at all off a goal every 2 games. And at international level, that's so impressive, I think. And I mean, yes, he spurns chances, and comments coming in there, he's not a Villa or a Torres, but I think that, I mean, I don't know why we're now the Clyde Football Podcast, but I'll just go with it. There we go. But yeah, I think that Spain were, but I think there's argument to be made that Morata had a better tournament than Ciro Immobile. Immobile had an all-right first game. I think Immobile's been massively disappointed, but because Italy are still there in the final, he's not getting the same sort of criticism. So I'm still hopeful that Morata can maybe come good, but I don't know, has that been the downfall this tournament? Did Morata miss big chances in that semi-final? Not really. He took his chance, didn't he? Mm-hmm. And it was perhaps other players in the team that meant they didn't get through. So I take the point, but I think it's been a harsh ride for Morata, and I would love to see him come good because some of the criticism he's got has been pretty intense.
What do you make of that, Cameron? Do you think that Spain's biggest downfall this this tournament was the fact that they didn't have that out-and-out number 9?
Maybe, yeah. Like, they're going into a semi-final with Mikel Oyarzabal through the middle, and then they're switching out every 2 minutes with Dani Olmo. And I think, as Sean says, Morata took his chances. Oyarzabal really didn't. Missed 2 sitters. One time didn't even get his head on the ball, a clear goal. I think Dani Olmo was actually better through the middle for them. When he played, I thought there was actually a bit of, not clinicalness, because he didn't score, but he got a lot closer than Oyarzabal. So, depth, I think that's probably our downfall. We've said this on Euros Pod. Spain had 26 players to take to the Euros, and they only took 24. There would have been no harm in taking an extra striker, no harm at all. And it's, Sean, you said that you got Aspas. I think that's the right shout as well. Also, I know he was a flop at Liverpool, but he's been outstanding the last couple of years back in Spain. And I was shocked when he didn't go.
Looking at it as well. Sorry, Sean.
Because I think a lot of people thought that at the time that it was strange he didn't come in, but Semra Hunter, who was on Soccer Supernova with Amy Canavan, sort of went deep on that, and it gave some really, really good insight on the Spanish national team as a whole at the moment and their sort of centre-forward struggles. So if people are interested, as they seem to be on this current Spanish national team, I would definitely recommend checking out Soccer Supernova with Semra Hunter, who presents La Liga TV, because she gave some really, really good insight on that team.
Yeah, definitely. Check that out. That is the Soccer Supernova with Amy Canavan. You can find that on A State of Mind here. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube if you're watching. I was just about to say, Cameron, you mentioned the 24-man squad for Spain. When we were talking about this before the tournament, Sean, we were talking about Sergio Ramos not going. Now, two of Spain's biggest flaws in this whole tournament was the kind of defensive frailties and the fact that they can't take penalties. He was the man that covered both of those things. He would have been the man, the first one up there to take the penalty, and he would have offered the solidity at the back. And I think when you look back on it now, it was a mistake not to include him.
Yeah, I think so too. I think especially when, like we said, it's not as if any of those players had to miss out. You could have taken Sergio Ramos and still had room. Maybe he thought it'd be a disruption that if the defenders don't have a great first game, that it's like you've got to play Ramos. But I think that pressure would have been there for good reason, considering that he has so much experience. And I hate the fact, I've said this on State of the Euros, that in multiple games they swapped their centre half. Like, what? Yeah. You're changing your back two mid-game. Like, that can't be good for stability, for communication between the team. I mean, Pau Torres and Eric Garcia are quite different players, and I think that the fact that they chopped and changed throughout the tournament during games of football, it sort of sums up the fact that there was no real sort of leader in that Spanish defence, and of course Sergio Ramos would have been that, and he would have scored some penalties, I'm pretty sure, as well.
Definitely, Cameron, they missed them big time, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the back for Spain, if we're even taking penalties out of it, I thought Aymeric Laporte had a fairly solid tournament. I thought he was probably the only defender. Maybe Azpilicueta had a good tournament too, but I think his other centre-back partners were up for it. Pau Torres wasn't outstanding. Eric Garcia, you could say, had a bad tournament. Definitely at fault for Italy's goal from Chiesa. Didn't close that down quick enough in the semi. So, yeah, definitely Sergio Ramos, leaving him out, even if he wasn't quite fit. You've seen Harry Maguire and Jordan Henderson come to this tournament, and they've luckily came back, been able to get minutes, even starting. Even if Ramos couldn't do that, even just his influence around the team, I feel like that's something that's maybe hyped up a little bit too much in the media, but it does still stand for something. If you've got a spare spot, he should have came if he wanted to come. I suppose maybe it was his decision. I'm not sure if it was or wasn't, but if he was happy to go, they should have took him.
Jay Hansen coming in to give some suggestions for that forward role. Rodrigo from Leeds or Inaki Williams for Bilbao. Inaki Williams is one of the ones immediately I thought of when I thought they were looking for a number 9. I know he didn't score a lot of goals in La Liga last season, but he's got that experience, and he's one that's used to leading a line, and I think that Spain team really did need that. But going to Italy, they've just shown throughout this whole tournament how to grind out a result, and once again, taking it through on penalties, and the sort of banter between Chiellini and Alba before the penalty shootout was top shithousery. That was next level. That was like it was like an older brother bullying a younger brother. That is exactly what that looked like. And I tell you what, I reckon it worked. I reckon he got in their heads.
Cam, you talk about this because, as I said in our group chat, I actually missed this. I was
No, I loved it as well. I said on State of the Euros that I thought it was fantastic. He clearly got his head, and even when Italy clear a ball or they get a header on something, they block something, it goes out for a corner, and they start celebrating, jumping on each other. I don't think they do that for themselves. I don't think they celebrate that much for themselves. I think they do that just to get into the opposition's head. And I think it works. I think when you think, oh my God, these guys are well up for this. Like, I'm not even getting my shots on target. Like, these guys aren't even letting me get a shot away. It's just getting blocked and thrown out for a throw, and they're celebrating in my face. That will get in your head, that major tournament. Yeah. You will start doubting yourself. And I think especially that, I loved that as well. I thought that was fantastic between him and Alba. I thought Alba is someone that clearly isn't a natural born leader. Like, we've seen it before. We've seen a few instances in the past where he's clearly not the man in the room you want giving a big inspirational speech. And I think clearly making him look so small on live television to millions, it's brilliant to watch, and I definitely think it helped Italy in that penalty shootout.
I know we're talking about the Euros here, but the other tournament that's going on at the minute is the Copa America, and I don't know if any of you seen the Argentina goalkeeper and the shootout against Colombia. Definitely go and watch it after this. The Argentina goalkeeper literally just winds up every single penalty taker that's about to come up and take one for Colombia. He just says, look at my eyes, I'm telling you where I'm going, hit it the other way, and he saves 3 of the 5 penalties as Argentina go through. So definitely go and check that out. let's look at the other semi-final though. 2-1 win for England over Denmark after extra time. A fantastic goal, as you mentioned, from Damsgaard, the free kick. But England, we spoke about teams that are grinding out results. Fantastic result against the Ukraine. But generally overall, the English team have found a way to win when not playing at their best. And this was another game that showed that. First of all, but let's get to the most contentious bit. I'm going to ask both of you. Was it a penalty?
No. It's really, really easy, isn't it? Because it just wasn't.
I said this instead of yours. I'd love to have just said yes, just to be like different, to play devil's advocate, but it's so obvious that I can't. I couldn't even pretend to debate it. So no, not a penalty for me.
Now, I've seen this replayed 6 or 7 different kind of angles, and I can understand to an extent where English fans are coming from. I can see the slight contact, but that is the softest of soft penalties. If that was given for Denmark against England, we would never have heard the end of it.
Oh, absolutely not. And I think that Scotland fans, obviously, if it had happened to us, you would have been like, oh, that's great. But I think we would have been self-aware enough to go, well, he has dived. You can respect the sort of wiliness of it and the sort of cunning to go down if you felt a slight touch. Then, I think, like I said earlier, cheating in football isn't necessarily the worst thing. I think that if it was my team, I'd be happy for them to take that little advantage to try and get something. It's got to be done when you're a Kilmarnock fan. But I think that, like you said, the sort of double standards of it, the way that's going to be discussed if it was the other way around is pretty ridiculous. But just to sort of argue the fact that it could be a penalty, just admit it, he dived. But that's what I'd say. Well, yeah, I dived, but we're going to the final. Like, he got us to the final. And, I mean, those Danish players were tired. That was something was good. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if an actual penalty would have arisen because of a stray leg, because they were absolutely knackered. And no wonder when they're having to fly back from Baku. I mean, I think that's one of the sort of few down points of this tournament is the logistics of it. I just think the fact that Denmark had to come back from Baku when England have been at home the entire tournament, apart from a wee trip to Rome, is pretty pathetic, to be honest. And it gives them a massive advantage going into that game. And I think it showed in that second half. Sort of in the extra time, I mean, and I think that it was a dive, and that's it. But I think I would just take ownership of it. Say, it's a dive, but oh well, that happened.
Cameron, interested to get your point here. Danny's obviously an England fan, and he's saying here, anywhere else on the park, it's a free kick, so it's a penalty. Do you agree with that?
For that ref, it was. Anything was a free kick.
He gave millions.
So many.
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I still don't think it's a foul. I've seen there's one great angle that does show, I'm forgetting the names of the Danish players here, but the first Denmark player makes contact, his knee hits the back of Sterling's knee. But Sterling's pretty much already going down. And then another player makes the slightest bit of contact and he's already down by that point. He's going down before there's any contact made. And that's why I think it's a dive. And that's why even if it would be a free kick, it would be a free kick the opposite way because he's going down trying to get a free kick or a penalty. You see it when Sterling got back up. Sterling got up and the look on his face was like, I'm getting booked here. It's like he couldn't quite believe when he turned up and looked at the referee, gave a penalty, and he just sort of walked away like sheepishly, just kind of like, oh my God, how have we, like VAR's surely going to pull this back? And well, I suppose lucky for any England fans out there, it didn't, and Kane eventually put it in the back of the net.
Danny boy, just going back into reality, he is an England fan, he's English, not a Rangers fan, that's fine. You can be whatever you want here on the Football Insomniac, nobody's going to judge you. I mean, we've even got Seán in and he's a Kelly fan, so that's the levels that we're going to. You want to defend yourself there, Seán? No, you're all right?
It's fair, it's completely fair.
So that is the final. It is England versus Italy. We've covered the story of the tournament so far. We will be discussing the final very, very shortly. But first of all, let's see who you voted as your player of the tournament. The 4 nominees were Federico Chiesa of Juventus in Italy, Raheem Sterling, who we just previously mentioned, of Man City in England, Simon Kjaer of AC Milan and Denmark, and Patrick Schick of Leverkusen and the Czech Republic. I've asked Seán so far, so Cameron, of the 4, who would you pick as your winner?
I have just called him a cheat on live on a live show, but Raheem Sterling's my player of the tournament. I think even when England have been poor, he's been a spark. And I think while they've been rotating out in the right way, I think Sterling's been a mainstay on the left, and he's been fantastic. It's got to be him for me.
Seán, are you going to be difficult again as your player of the tournament, not amongst these 4?
No, he's not. And why not? Why break the habit? You have it in a lifetime. Why do it? I mean, I think Cam could guess mine because mine is, for me, the best player in the best team. So I'd like Cam to guess it, who my player of the tournament is.
I believe it may be Jorginho.
Jorginho. I just think he's been Italy's the most consistent player throughout this tournament. I think that he's quietly gone about doing his work. He's the real heartbeat of this team. He keeps them ticking, and he gets criticism for not being a proper out-and-out defensive midfielder. The minute counter-attacks, he's sort of cleverly broken up, and not in a sort of cynical way. He still managed to nick the ball cleanly and then sets up another attack. For me, that's how I judge it. The best player in the best team, and for me, that's Jorginho.
And out of the four, who would you choose?
Who wins shit? Out of that list, it is Raheem Sterling. And yeah, I think it has to be. I mean, he's been fantastic, and he's another one of those things that makes it kind of this England team are quite likeable. I mean, he's a decent guy, Raheem Sterling. He's done a lot of great work. It's just like if they weren't English and it wasn't the English media behind them, they would almost be likeable. But that's not the case, and I hope they get
almost. Look, I've got two different answers for this here. First of all, I think regardless of what happens, Simon Kjær should get some sort of reward because his actions on that day when the Christian Eriksen incident happened were the epitome of what a captain should be. He was a leader of the men out there. He made sure that everybody was aware, not even just his teammates, but the fact that Christian Eriksen's girlfriend came on the park and he was the one that was consoling her as well. That was outstanding. So a massive sort of shout out from us to Simon Kjær. I hope he gets some sort of award out of it. But the player of the tournament, as chosen by the Insomniac viewers, went to Federico Chiesa of Italy with 47% of the vote. Second was Simon Kjær, I think, again for emotional reasons. Sterling finished on 16% and Sheik on 14%, so not a hat-trick for Sheik, but Chiesa gets player of the tournament. Anybody care to disagree with the fans?
I don't think it's a bad choice, perhaps. I'm shocked that it's that big a margin. I thought it would be a lot closer between all four of them, to be honest. But no, I think Federico Chiesa is a favourite, especially because of his last few performances. I could be totally wrong here. Maybe he did change the game in an early game or two, but I feel like he came into it more maybe the end of the group stage and the knockout round. So it definitely helps when you have a better end to the tournament than a strong start.
Yeah. Sean?
Yeah, I mean, we might get onto it. I think there is definitely praise for Chiesa, and I would do that, but I don't know, like Cameron sort of alluded to there, he didn't play the first two games. I think he did play that sort of dead rubber against Wales, and then he came off the bench and scored that great goal against Austria. He scored big goals at big moments, and that's why I would still praise him. But for me, he's not sort of played enough games or really been sort of a key player throughout the tournament to be my player of the tournament. But I mean, I was saying it, I was quite smug about it, wasn't I, Cam, that in that game against Austria, we needed Chiesa. I said, need to get Chiesa on because he's a constant goal threat. Every time he picks up the ball, you just get the feeling that he could make the pass that it leads to a goal, or he could wrap it himself. So he's a very, very talented young player. Wasn't in Juventus' plans for him to be a key player this season, but he forced his way into that team among all that attacking talent. And Andrea Pirlo would have been sacked a long time before if it wasn't for Chiesa and Turin this season.
We are over an hour in, and we've still got the quiz to get to and the final to discuss. So very quickly, Sean, give us your 1 to 11 of the players of the tournament.
And I still don't have this written down, so it's over my head, but I'm going to say the exact same thing I said to you earlier. So in goals for me is Jan Sommer. I think he had a great tournament. Fullbacks, I have cheated because I couldn't pick between the two left backs, and one of them's right-footed. So Mela's on the right for me, and Spinazzola, who's just so gutted to see him get injured in that tournament. Because he was a real revelation, and hopefully he kicks on when he's fit again. Centre backs, I did consider John Stones, but it was really close, and the deciding factor is that he's English, so I went for Kjær and Bonucci. My midfield three is Jorginho, Barella, who's another fantastic young player, and I've got Pedri in there because I think that he was Spain's best player throughout the tournament, and Spain were a good team, got to the semi-finals, so he deserves to be there, and he's only 18 years old, and he's going to be amazing. My front three, Chiesa, I think he deserved a place in the team of the tournament. Schick, of course, up front. And like I said, Raheem Sterling deserves to be in there as well.
So I'll quickly go through mine. I had Donnarumma in goal, a back four of Denzel Dumfries, Simon Kjaer, Giorgio Chiellini, and Luke Shaw, who I think is one of the players that's been an outstanding asset to that team. Barella, Busquets, and De Bruyne make up my midfield, and my front three is Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane, again someone who's only really come into form in the latter half of the tournament, but when you're going further into the tournament, that's exactly what you need. And the man of the moment, Federico Chiesa. Now, we do have to look at the final. We know which team the three of us want to win, but let's look at the head-to-head stats and then we'll get a quick prediction off you because we don't know which team's going to play. Looking at both teams, it's their first final. England, their first final since 1966. I'm sure we've all heard that in the media.
Did they win the World Cup in 1966, did they?
No. It was a final. I don't know how they got on. Italy's first final since 2012. Top scorer so far for England is Harry Kane with 4 goals. Italy, quite interestingly, have 5 players on 2 goals. That's quite an interesting one. And I'd say the best result for both teams in the tournament so far, a 2-0 victory for England over Germany. And I'd say Italy's penalty victory over Spain is probably one of their best performances. The head-to-head record is quite close. They've played each other 27 times. England have won 8, Italy have won 10, and there's been 9 draws. And in the last 5 games against each other, there has been 2 victories for Italy, 1 for England, and 2 draws. The last time that the two met was in the World Cup group. In the major tournament, was in the World Cup group in 2014. It was a 2-1 victory for Italy. Lads, we're kind of running a bit late here. The Clyde podcast is also on at the same time. If you're a Clyde fan tuning in, then I do apologise. But quickly, Sean, what would be your prediction for the game on Sunday? How do you see it going?
Well, Colin, I don't know if you're a TikTok man yourself.
Yes.
But see, after that first game, that TikTok went viral. That it's this guy saying he's some sort of time traveller from the future. And Italy,
I've seen this.
We're going to beat England in the finals after the Italy-Turkey game. And I mean, I don't personally believe in time travel, but this guy is called the final, and he said that Italy were going to win. So I'm going with that man because he's been right so far, and I'm going to say 1-0 Italy.
Right now. That just means that you've not watched it properly because he says 2-1 in extra time.
2-1.
I did think that, right? But it can't be that, right? So there's got to be... There's alternative universities and stuff like that. So this one is just 1-0.
Cameron, how's it going on Sunday?
I'd love to go different than Sean, but I've already said 1-0, and I think it'll be... I think I said it would be Bonucci to get the winner, a set piece or something. So Leonardo Bonucci to get the winner, 1-0 Italy. I'm
going to just bring up some of the comments coming in. Duda Bides comes in to say 0-0 in Italy on penalties. That would be... it wouldn't be a surprise to me. I mean, you look at it, what would that be? Italy's 34th consecutive victory in a row. Outstanding, that would be. Maravchi25 comes in to say Italian mentality and a 2-0. Some feedback on our team of the tournament. Terence Park comes in to say Kasper Schmeichel's been great.
Yeah.
He kept Denmark in the game against England and was very unlucky with the rebound. Definitely, I've got to say so. Duda Bides comes in to say Stones has to be in the team of the tournament. I thought Stones had been good as well, but I think when I look at my centre-halves, there have been 2 proper captains and I need them to come through the tournament. Terence Pat also comes in to say that he thinks England will win on penalties. Now, if you go on the sort of momentum, I can absolutely see England winning this. It's at Wembley. There's 70,000 fans going to be there? That's going to be a difficult one for the Italians to break down. But if there's one team that knows how to do that, it is them. I mean, you look at them, I can already see the headlines. Italian players roll about the park as they win the European trophy. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be. So if England can get above that, they deserve to win the tournament. But the Italians are just on this kind of incredible run. I need to go off the fence. I need to pick a winner. I'll go for Italy in extra time. I'm going with that time traveller being right. I'm going for 2-1.
Nice.
2-1. So let's get down to business and wrap up today's show. Thank you to everyone who's been watching. But we are going to do the quiz. Now, this is a quiz of the Euros. Sean is on a run of 2 consecutive victories. Cameron is here to hopefully try and stop him. The way we do this is in the style of a penalty shootout. Sean, as a defending champion, you have the right to choose set 1 or set 2 of the questions.
Going second worked for me in my most convincing win so far last time, so I'm going to stick with second. I don't mind being under pressure.
Well, here we go, Cameron. It means you are up first and you have set 1. Question number 1 of the quiz. Who scored the opening goal of Euro 2020?
Right, well, it was Italy. I would love to be able to tell you. It seems about 5 months ago. It really does. I'm going to say, I think he did score this game. I don't know if he scored first. I'm going to say Manuel Locatelli.
It was actually Demiral with an own goal.
Yeah, that's
It was an own goal from Turkey that started that.
I should have known the top goal scorer at this tournament was on goal. So, should have known that.
I was thinking Player and Insigne, but that's the 2 other goals in that game, isn't it? So.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, both.
Again, that was another TikTok that went round saying that they predicted the 3-0 victory, but let's not get in too deep on that. Sean, your chance to get an early lead. Can you name me one of the 2 third-place teams that didn't qualify?
Just one of the 2 third-place teams, right? I think that would be Slovakia.
You could have had Finland or Slovakia. It's a 1-0 start for you, Sean. Let's see if we can pull it back here, Cameron. As of today, now this is before the final, who are the top goal scorers in the competition on 13? Which team?
13. Now, Spain have scored 10 in 2 games. Didn't start off that well, though. Italy have scored that much. So they've got 5 players on 2 goals. Oh, God, that's really difficult. I'm going to say... I can't think of Spain's games before this. I'm going to say Spain. I think it might be Italy. I'm going to say Spain.
You almost talked yourself out of it, but glad you didn't. It's 1-1.
I've got points on the board. That's what matters.
Sean, your chance to come back in. Which team has conceded the most amount of goals in this tournament?
What a great question that is. You've got to think it's a team who got... You'd think that it's got to be a team who get through, but they've also conceded a bit. One of the teams on the end of... I'm going to say, because of a game I spoke about earlier where they got beat 3-2 and they got beat 4-0 by England, I'll say Ukraine.
He's 2 for 2 so far. He wants to win that 3rd week in a row. Cameron, your chance to level the scores here. Name one of the 2 teams who picked up the least amount of yellow cards.
Right, so you think that's got to be a team in the group stage? Surely it's only played 3 games. Who's not been just a dirty, rotten team? Who's not so cynical?
That's tough.
I don't know. That maybe could be a team that's went through. I feel like someone like England would have picked up many. I'm going to say... Oh, God, that's a really tough question. I'm going to say, because I don't think we got... I'm going to say Scotland, just because I don't think we got many. I'm going to say Scotland.
I would have said Scotland as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there was 2 teams who picked up only 3 yellow cards. One of them was the Netherlands, and the other one was Scotland.
Oh, I did think the other ones as well. I'm taking that as a personal win, even if I lose today.
Sean, your chance to go 3 for 3. Who's the only player to have scored from the spot twice in the normal 90 minutes?
In 90 minutes? Oh, it must...
I think I'm thinking the same, Sean.
Yeah. It must be Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Final answer?
I think.
Is that where you're going with Cristiano?
Yeah, that's my answer.
3 from 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've picked the right set of questions here.
I think I have.
Cameron, how many games so far have gone to extra time in this tournament?
I'd be counting.
I'm genuinely trying to think of the games that went to penalties.
I just don't want it to be the dead air. I'm going to talk over you while you're thinking, Cameron, just because I don't want any sort of... Only because of dead air.
I won't take long. I'm going to answer in about 5 seconds.
Right,
I'm going to say...
3.
Seven games. 7 games.
They might be difficult, but Cameron, you are smashing them. It was 7 games that's went to extra time. Sean is raging. I can see him there. He's absolutely raging. Sean, your question. Name me a host city whose country didn't qualify for the tournament.
A host city whose country didn't qualify for the tournament. Just the one, or do you want
just
multiple?
one? I just said name me a city. How many do you think? How many do you think there are?
I definitely have 2. And I think there might just be 2. I think.
Well, give me one of them then.
Baku and/or Bucharest.
It was Baku and Bucharest. I'll give you a point for that. That means it's 4-3 going into the final one. Cameron, you need this to have any chance of going to a tiebreak question here. How many own goals have been scored at this tournament?
Is it not a record? Oh, right. I know it equaled the previous record of 9. That's what it equaled. I don't know if it's been beat since. I'm going to say 10 because Simon Kerr scored 1 too. I'll say 10.
Sean, what would you have went with?
No idea. 11.
You would have been 5 for 5. It was 11.
Oh,
which means, Sean, you have won this week's quiz. It is currently 4-2, but here's a chance for a clean sweep. 5 for 5. Can you get it? In total, how many games, including the final, will have been played in this tournament?
Oh, how good's my mental arithmetic? 6 group of 3 games, 18. 18 plus 8 is 26. Plus 4 is 30. Plus 2 is... I've lost it now. Is it 33?
Do you know you started off terribly? You said 6 groups of 3 and you went 18, forgetting that they play each other 3 times. So there's so it's not 18 games in each.
Groups of 3 games?
Yeah, but that 18 games is not the one round.
Oh, wait, I'm up at 100.
So the final amount of games will be 51.
Yeah.
51 games. So you finish on... Sean, you finish on 4. Cameron, it was a very valid effort. You finished on 1, 2, 3 points. Just quickly before we go, because we are well over time, I'll give you this week's tiebreaker question and see who can quickly get to it. You'll have 10 seconds to answer. What is the total amount of caps for both England and Italy from their semi-final 11s? So it's the 11 that started. That would have been the total number of caps. Closest to it would win. Sean?
It's definitely 422.
422. What would you have went with, Cameron?
Right, I think he's right. So I'm gonna go one less.
Can I just say before you say this?
Messed up.
Before you guess, right? I'm going to say he's wrong. I'm not going to say how he's wrong, but he's wrong.
Okay. I won't do like the one below, one above thing. Then I'll actually go for an answer. I'm going to say. I'll say. I feel like Chiellini and Bonucci alone. Jesus, I'm going to say 390. 390.
So I don't know if you've misunderstood the question, but it was the total number of caps for both teams, so both England and Italy combined. Italy alone had 515 caps, and England had 388, which means the final total was 903 caps. So Sean, you would have won that as well. But that's 3 weeks in a row. You have won. Sean, 15 seconds to go before we wrap up.
Well, Matt, just gloating again.
Yeah.
Well, me and Cameron have a quiz on our weekly football podcast, ENRG Extra Time. He's much better at it than I am. So the fact that I have done better on this one just means that this is kind of where I belong, I think, Colin. So you bring out the best in me. And a first announcement that Cameron's no longer my co-host than Colin is. So goodbye, Cameron.
No, it's my pleasure to always drag you down. It's what I do. It's my goal in life, and it was a pleasure to be here. So thank you, guys.
Oh, Cameron, it's been a pleasure having you on. Tell everyone that's watching where they can find you on social media.
Just on Twitter at Cameron Wanstall.
And it's been great having you on, Sean. You'll be back next week going for 4 in a row. We'll see who you'll be challenging. A big thank you to everyone who has been in the comment section. It's been a great discussion today. We look forward to the final on Sunday. I'm sorry, but good luck to Italy. I know that's going to annoy Danny Boy in the chat, but hey ho. I mean, if he wins, I'm sure he'll be back next week.
Danny Boy in supporting England, there's so much wrong there.
I'm just going to say Danny Boy will be back next week if England do win. I'm sure he'll be rubbing it in our faces. But it's been great to have this Friday evening with you. Thank you very much for watching us on the Football Insomniac. Again, please subscribe to A State of Mind on YouTube. Some fantastic prizes ongoing. Until next week, thank you once again, and we'll see you soon.